Welcome everyone. Long time no see. We're finally back with another episode of Beyond Beliefs, and what better co-host to have than Mr. Robert Reed? So, Robert,
Hey
welcome.
everybody,
How you been doing?
good to be back.
It,
I've been doing. I'm
it
hanging in there.
okay. Yeah, it's been a while. So, but
Yeah,
great to be back, and great to have you as a co-host.
thank you, thank
Today,
you.
we've got a guest from Australia, which we haven't had before. So one thing we do know, I think we can assume that he's not a flat earther because otherwise he wouldn't exist. But
That
we'll
was a
see.
good one.
So welcome to our guest for tonight, Ryan Lamotte from Australia. Tell us
Hello.
who you are. A brief synopsis.
Yep. I'm from Sydney. I have two daughters who are 7 and 5, and I have my career is what they call I don't know what they call it in the States, but an orderly or a wards person, and I've been doing that for about 8 years. So I work in the hospital. And we do a lot of the manual work and the nurse assisting with patients and care and that's a shift work, so I do a lot of juggling with children and shifts and whatnot, and a good portion of my week is soccer because I play soccer myself and my daughters play soccer, and it's training twice a week, so
That's
it's
all right.
So
it's a full week.
isn't
Yeah,
isn't
I
isn't
bet.
isn't it called football in Australia?
I was about to say.
You call
It's
called
not?
soccer.
you call
No,
Okay.
we call
oh,
it soccer.
okay.
Soccer it is.
Yeah. So Ryan, you and I bumped into each other in a conversation on Twitter. I think that was a pretty heated conversation. I'm not entirely sure.
Mm.
That's I don't know. I don't think it was too heated, but yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the person you were talking to, for the people
Mhm.
on screen, you can see behind me there is a bird. I'll never figure this out. There's a bird on the lamp. That is Shambo, the guy that Ryan was talking to. I think when I bumped into him, Shambo is sharing his account with a guy who used to be known as Religulous before Twitter kicked him off for some stupid reason, and he's been my mentor. So pretty much the reason why this is a channel is partly due to Religulous, who's a really good friend of mine. But yeah, so and we were talking about things, and we got into talking about evolution. I don't think that that's going to be a topic that we're going to really flesh out. But can you tell us what you believe, and most important, why you believe it?
In general, or specifically about evolution, just in
No,
general.
no, no. In general, your what kind of
Okay.
religion do you hold to, and especially why?
Yep. Okay. I'll try and flesh it out as quick as I can, but I've written some notes.
Okay.
Um, I'll start with me, and I think hopefully viewers can potentially identify with most of these, if not all of them. That would be great, but most of them. So me, I believe I have thoughts. I believe I have emotions. I believe I have feelings. I believe that I have a conscience, and last of all, of course, I believe that I have a soul. Okay, and so that's obviously the religious aspect of what I believe, and I best think that I've I, Christianity helps me identify my belief when navigating all those things I've just listed, including the soul at the end. So it's pretty basic, but I think most of us can agree we have thoughts, emotions, and feelings. Oh, and the flesh. I think I missed that one. That's important. Body. I obviously believe I have a flesh and a body. I 100% believe that. I don't deny it, and I believe that I'm 100% body and flesh. But I also believe that there's an element where I have a soul as well, that somehow exists beyond the flesh.
Okay.
So, and I might add there that I don't want to, and in Christianity, with faith in general, I don't want a just belief. I want a beyond belief. I want something that's, if I'm going to believe in something, and I am going to believe in a God, I don't want it to be just a belief. I want it to be beyond belief.
You keep getting making a commercial for our show, which is called Beyond Beliefs. So
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
I always,
What do you mean by beyond belief? And I got questions, but go ahead. What do you mean by you want to believe beyond belief?
Well, I think if you're going to start entertaining the idea of a God, it has to be beyond what it is that we can comprehend. I can't see how, if you're going to entertain the idea of a God and explore and maybe think about, having a faith or a religion, there's going to be an element or an aspect of it that has to be beyond our comprehension. It just makes sense to me, and that seems to have been proven in my aspect, in my faith, that the little steps that I take in my Christian journey, and just day by day, and predominantly living in the world just normally like everybody else, but you have to at some point accept that what it is that you choose to believe about God has to be beyond what we can comprehend using a scientific potential theory and model. Although
Go ahead. Which science?
Yeah.
What?
Which obviously I think science can also, I believe, give purpose or bring purpose to an intelligent design,
All right.
or a beautiful designer, if you like, as well. You can elaborate on that as much as you like.
Well, I got several questions, but my first one would be, when you say something that has to be like beyond belief, right? Like when I was a Christian, I was a Christian for almost 40 years, so I know where you're coming from. Put that out there. But when you say, it has to be beyond belief, right? It's like, I think back to when people say, well, God is beyond our comprehension, and then they would absolutely negate that by explaining all this stuff. You know what I mean? And so it's like,
yes,
it to me, when you get to that point where it's like beyond belief, as an atheist now, I just hang my hat on I don't know. Because if it's beyond your belief, that means it's also beyond your explanation. And so from there, and I'm saying this respectfully, it just seems like you're making stuff up. You know what I mean? That's why there's 30,000 plus denominations of Christianity, because it's beyond your belief. So you guys just seem to fill in everything else, and no one seems to agree. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think if everyone has that, and I think, Robert, you said you understood it and you get it, and it's beyond belief. So if everyone is trying to access an incomprehensible God, it's going to naturally create all different ideas.
Right.
And you can't, that's what's got to happen. I don't know how, if God is within our grasp and within our comprehension, then it would narrow the number of religions that we have, because
right.
Well, to how much God reveals himself to us all, collaborative, that we can come to understand it. And so the more he reveals himself to everybody collaboratively, the more we'll be able to obviously narrow it down to who he is.
Okay. Well, go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I think he's careful in how he does it. I don't think he just, I believe he...
If I can start it up again. I think I may have caught the issue.
Okay.
Good job. Well done.
So let's see if we're back. We should be back.
Okay. We should be back.
So let's see if this works. So change some settings. So hopefully this will work. So my apologies for that. I've had an update from Windows and an update from OBS, and everything is screwed up at the moment. I have no clue where to go find it, so I'll need to do some more testing in this week. But at least I hope the whole choppy thing, as far as I can see, is solved now. So let's continue. So I have no
give it a
clue
shot.
what you guys were talking about, because I was looking to see if I could solve the problem. But
I think we were on. I was asking him about his God being beyond belief, and that he was saying that if that God reveals Himself, kind of incremental, in small increments, right? So, am I right, Ryan? Is that kind of where we were?
Yeah, I believe he does reveal himself carefully and true to the nature of who he is. I don't think we can impose an expectation of how he should reveal himself, which makes things very, very hard.
It makes things almost impossible, right?
It makes things almost impossible, yeah.
Because as we sit here, we try and figure out your God, right? Like I've been told this. I told you while we were off, I spent 39 years as a hardcore Christian, right? And we were pretty much literal. And Leviticus says to stone gay people to death. That's not when a man lies with another man as he does a woman, what he has done is an abomination, all that good stuff. And now I'm starting to hear that apparently the translation was wrong. And what it's supposed to say is basically if a man rapes a little boy, because God could not come up with a word for pedophilia. Now, as your God reveals Himself in increments, do you have any idea how many gay people have been killed and ostracized because God is giving little hints along the way? You see what I'm saying? So it's like, how do we explain to the families of the deceased gay people who have been tortured through conversion therapy, who have been straight up murdered, ostracized, severe depression, because your God did not reveal Himself in a clear enough manner? You see what I'm saying? I mean, is that good enough for you?
Well, it's a hard one, and to be honest, it's not something I would particularly. I would definitely not say that I'm an expert in that area and that.
Okay.
And that. But obviously I will put something. And you said it was in Leviticus, right? And
yes. 1823, I think. Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to particularly be brought up, and
oh no, we can take this wherever you want to go, my man.
But I think if you look at the Old Testament and it's and you take the Jewish people who and if you take it as a narrative, I don't expect anyone who's watching at this point to it's the be all and end all. I don't want anyone to jump to that conclusion if it's not the conclusion they want to jump to. But if we take the narrative of the Bible and what it's doing, it's the old. As far as God was concerned, the world was falling apart. It was there was all these. It wasn't a. There was a lot of. It's a pretty dark place. It was very dark, and there was, and people were all over the place, and there was wars, and they were religious wars, and of course, because I don't think they had science then, so everybody had a religious belief, which meant that you could equate every war to religiosity.
Right.
But a lot of people were war. They also had to have land and water. The water was a huge resource, so they fought over water as well. So, and God needed to establish who He was and an identity back into the world and who He was, and to do that, He had to find people who were willing to discover who He was. Okay. And that's not an easy thing, because only very few people put their hand up to do it. Now, you can take the narrative of the Old Testament literally, or you can take it metaphorically. It doesn't particularly bother me at this point. And some of it I take literally and some of it I take metaphorically. But if you take it at a metaphorical point of view, God's got a big job to do. the whole world has forgotten who he is, and they're not interested. They don't care. So they do whatever it is that they want to do. He has to find someone who is willing to discover God for who God is. But to do that, you also then have to redefine who you are.
Okay.
You can't just follow a God and say, I'm still going to be who I am. Because the nature of it is, you can, but not, well, you can and you can't. It's a double whammy, because God wants to reveal himself through people and identify himself through a nation that is whole and ultimately the Jewish people were called to be a blessing to the world.
Okay.
And they had to learn, and so
Go ahead.
he establishes laws that allow them to get along and live in a society that's healthy, and then can help carry a piece of the identity of who God is and be a blessing into the world. It's a big concept, but that, and there's something about holding on to the beauty of who God is and the nature of marriage and what it means to have children and flourish, which is stated right at the beginning. Now, I've got friends who are gay, and they're also Christian, and they're a lot more intelligent than I am, and they look into the scripture and find reasons where God is not at all against homosexuality in that sense.
And see, to me, that is like if the slave owner whips the black off of my back, rapes my mom, sells my family members off, but buys me a birthday present. Now, you can either focus on the birthday present, or you can focus on the fact that the slave owner's a fucking slave owner, right? And so it's like, I've always been curious on the concept of a gay Christian, because Leviticus is very, and then for those that want to throw away the Old Testament, the New Testament isn't much nicer. Matter of fact, it's worse, because the actual concept of a real hell was not introduced until the better half of the Bible, when everyone likes to lean on Jesus. And if you read Revelation, it will straight up tell you gay people are toast. And so I've never quite understood the concept of a gay Christian. But when you do you know how small Israel is? How small the Gaza Strip is?
It's tiny, yeah.
It's tiny. And so I was like, so if God wants to get out his perfect message, right? Why go to one of the smallest places there is? It's like the size of New Jersey. It's like, why would you go to New Jersey to get word to Alaska, which is the biggest state in the United States? There's no way New Jersey, especially back before iPads and emails. Why tell the people in New Jersey, you know what, if you drink orange juice, there will never be cancer. No one will ever die of cancer. Now, everyone in New Jersey with no electronics, get the word to the people in Alaska. Why did your God plant without insult, the smallest, most insignificant stretch of land the planet has to offer? It's like going to the North Pole.
If that's the case, though, if that is exactly the case, 100%, that what you're saying is true, and I believe it is, it just makes God all the more powerful. If he can, if God, well, if God can choose the most insignificant place in the entire world, and yet become one of the most greatest religions in the world, I think it's a testimony to how great he is.
But so I have to ask before I assume, but the Christianity that I was raised in, if you don't know about my Jesus, now whether you want to say it's annihilation or an actual torture or just a separation from God, if you don't hear my message, you don't get a reward.
But Robert, you already said to me that there's 30,000 different types of Christianity.
Right.
So I don't know what Christianity religion you were brought up in, and I can't identify with that.
Half Baptist, half Catholic.
I know, but that's still. So you think that there's 30,000 denominations of Christianity?
I know there is. Yeah.
And now, normally you ask, I think, when I watched a couple of episodes, is how many religions do you think there are?
Right.
And I would answer that question that, first of all, I'll ask you, do you think atheism is a religion?
No.
Just
it is not.
Okay. So how many people are in the world? Is it 6 billion?
6 to 8 billion-ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So say there's about 7 billion.
We're close to 7 billion, I think, now.
Okay.
So in my perspective and in my thinking when I try and answer these questions is that the number of religions in the world are 7 billion minus all the atheists, if you don't consider atheism a religion. And that's because everybody has their own idea. You'll never find anyone, it doesn't matter what religion or what denomination, who has exactly the same opinion about God and who God is. And it has to be that way because God must be above and beyond what we can comprehend. And that's going to mean that everybody's going to have an individual idea of who God is. And that means it puts the responsibility on the individual to discover who God is for themselves. And you can't put it on other people to tell you who God is. You have to identify if you believe in a personal God.
So let me ask you a question. How familiar are you with American football?
Somewhat familiar. Gridiron. Yep.
Somewhat. Okay. Do you know the concept of cover 2?
Nope.
Do you know who plays center field in cover 2?
Nope.
Okay. That means I'm not going to put you at safety when we play cover 2 because you've got no idea. Now, the worst thing that happens, because the concept in American football with safeties in cover 2 is deep as the deepest. Nothing can get as deep as the deepest. The safeties are on the hash mark. Nothing pulls you off the hash mark until you see the ball actually thrown. Now, the worst thing that happens if you fuck up cover 2 is someone scores a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
The worst thing that happens in your religion, if I don't know what time it is I get to go to hell. Right now, when you say 30,000 religions in just Christianity, you got to understand this Christian thinks this Christian is wrong. This Christian thinks they're so wrong, and I've been told this, that they're going to go to hell right next to me and be tortured forever. Now, that is a big ball drop right there. And so, again, it's like, I got to get back to kind of narrow it down with how do you know you're right? And you're right, I do ask people about other religions because Christianity states that Jesus is the only way, that your God is the only way. But I have to ask you, what do you know about Ganesh?
I don't. The topic of hell is one hectic topic, and the only thing I would say about that, and I don't ponder about it at all, really.
Okay.
Too much about it because it's just, it's hellish. But my father's a fireman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one thing he taught me when I was growing up, right? And this is the only comment I'll probably make about the idea of hell because I just think it's too messy. But otherwise, I would say that it's not. My dad would say, you go to a fire and there's obviously things are burning, but it's the smoke that you need to watch out for. It's the smoke that will kill you. It's not the flame; it's the smoke. And I think as people in the world, and as Americans and Australians and the West, we can see quite a bit of smoke. We can see a lot of smoke and a lot of things that are dark and a lot of things that are evil that we stay very, very far away from. And I think that is where and we can agree on a lot of things that are dark and are evil. And I believe that is as we move away from what we all can perceive and think as dark, which we do, and we must continue to do, and America must continue to do it, because America has, without fail, has been an advocate for peace in the world. And it's done that by staying away from things that are dark, by staying away from the smoke. And it stays in the spirit of peace and somewhat as best as it can in the spirit of truth. And it seems to me like America needs to be reminded of that you are a country that knows peace and knows knows what it is to be a nation that's united.
Okay.
And you can still be united with different opinions and different ideas.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
But peace and simple truths that America was built on has kept America out of the dark for a very long time and out of the smoke. And yes, it has had a bad past like the rest of the world. And yes, there's been things that are very, very dark. But you've done well to get rid of it. You've done well to clear it, and you're a long way away from the smoke. You've got to stay away from it. That's the only comment I'll make about it.
Can I jump in on this a little bit? Because when you say dark, I'm from the Netherlands. And so the Netherlands is, I think over 80% of people here identify as either atheist or non-believer. When I look at America and I look at what is going on right now, so you've got the NIFB, the New Independent Fundamentalist Baptists, who want the government to start killing gay people. Just because they're gay. And because that's in the Bible. You need to stone them to death. So they're not going that far, but they want to stone them. Or they want to kill them.
Yeah.
If you look
that's not true to my God.
If you look at laws that are being passed when it comes to abortion, if a woman is raped, she can't have an abortion because she will either go to prison, and some people are advocating to kill her as well as a punishment. America still has the death penalty. In one of the few countries
Texas.
in the Western world. Texas has an express lane when it comes to death penalties.
Pretty much. We don't wait around here, Jack.
No, so if you say that they're walking away from the dark, the way I look at it, based on religion, they're going towards it.
Yeah.
And a lot of our dark is based on the Bible. We have the death penalty, and people advocate for the death penalty because of the Bible.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know. It just, when you say you want to kind of stay away from hell, I'm going to be honest with you. That's one of the, if I were to name the top 10 things that always raised my eyebrow when I was a hardcore Christian, was the concept of hell. Because it is immoral. Now, you can't see me, but I'm a bigger than average person. And if I were to take my next door neighbor and just start beating the crap out of them.
Yes.
You know the difference between my immorality and your God's immorality? Eventually I'm going to stop. Either he's going to die or I'm just going to get tired. I think I proved my point. Eventually I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
Your God never lets off, no brakes, all gas. Apparently hell is forever. And it's easy to say that when you don't know the people going to hell, but then you finally meet someone who's a Muslim and maybe the wrong kind of Christian. And I'm just kind of curious, how do you square them going to hell with your earthly friendship?
But again, you're imposing your view of religion and your understanding. And I said this, and I made it very clear.
No, go ahead.
I wasn't accidental when I said this, Robert. I wasn't.
Go ahead. By all means.
I didn't say it by accident. I think every individual is, in this sense, minus atheism, if you don't believe that atheism is a religion, and that's fine. But every individual is religious in a sense that they can only grasp God as an idea. And we've got to be careful, and everybody's got to be careful, and Christians particularly have to be careful, and I don't know if we're very good at it. It seems to me like people all throughout scriptures fails at being good at identifying God. Very few people in scripture actually really get a grasp of who God is. But
Maybe I should ask you, what is God? What are we talking about when we say God? Maybe that'll help me. When you say identifying God, what do we...
You have... It sounds to me like you've got a world of wisdom, right, in what God and how God is portrayed in the scripture. But I did write a little bit of notes, so I just write what I think about me, which I think a lot of us can agree with.
Okay.
So the Bible, And I just did, and I was contemplating all week how I was going to lay this out. And
Sure.
Again, I'm no theologian and I'm no scholar or anything like that. But
Neither am I, my man. Neither am I.
And you don't have to apologize for that, because the talk that we're having, we're not asking you to defend Christianity. What we're interested in is more why you believe it. What are your reasons to believe in this?
Yes.
Robert has been religious. I've never been religious. I grew up as an atheist. I've always been an atheist. I do remember that at one time I asked my mother, when I found out that people were going to church, and I said, what are we? And my mother couldn't even answer. She said, I think we're heathens, but I'm not entirely sure. So I only started identifying as an atheist when I went onto social media, because I needed to label myself in a way.
Okay, sure.
And so when you're talking to Robert and me, we lack a belief in God. We're not convinced that a God exists.
True.
Yeah.
That is how we came to that's how Robert came to his position, and why I never veered off mine.
It's and look, it's not a bad. It can be an effective. It can play a very effective role, and it has to, because religious people, we do, and it's obvious that we can spiral out of control. We can take our idea of God and we can make it our own, and we can do something very, very evil with it, very easily. And so the people, if you're a non-believer, I don't have any trouble with a non-believer trying to keep me accountable for my actions in God. I think it's very important that you do that. But then again, everybody has to be accountable to one another in some shape or form.
I fully agree.
And if you don't have... So, yes, challenge us and keep on challenging us. Keep on challenging us. The more you challenge us in our belief in God as individuals, as...
Oh, no! Oops. Oh, no! Oh, damn it!
Yeah.
Oh, Bubba. Shit. Hey, Bubba.
That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate.
He was doing good.
Yeah, I'll see if I can...
I think I dropped out there.
Oh, there he goes. Come on.
He's
Come
back.
on.
Come on.
There we go. God wanted you to be here, Ryan. God wanted you to be here.
Yeah.
He restored your connection.
Amen. So the more you pressure us in our beliefs, which I invite, and it's very important, and I'm glad you've got this show, the more it's got to force us to really try and find the true nature of who God is. And you have a right to question everything that we do, because you're a person, and I believe that you're made in the image of God. So you could very well be speaking out of who the character of God is, if that is the case. So I wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
Yeah. I would never dismiss an atheist's moral opinion about something purely because I'm a Christian.
And I would never dismiss what a Christian has to say. And you probably haven't heard me say it, so I'll say it to you now. If your Jesus makes you a better person, Ryan, then I like your Jesus. Like, there's a Catholic priest that I follow on Twitter, and his Jesus only makes him say great things.
Good.
Right? And so it's like, I don't question their Jesus. The only problem, again, is, there's no consistency. Again, you guys all believe in the same Jesus, but this person's Jesus is completely fucked up. Like,
it is, Robert. It is, and it is a problem. It is a problem.
It's a huge problem, because these Christians have influence, right? And every single Christian who does the fucked up shit, they all have scriptural backing. No one's making this up. And so when Westboro Baptist goes outside of a funeral or stands outside of a church that's marrying a gay couple, they're sitting there with their Bibles reading, you shouldn't be doing this. And so that's what I'm saying.
I know, but
So how about this? How would I know that you've got the better version of Christianity versus Westboro?
you're hitting the, when you say it's a problem, right? It is exactly a problem, and the Bible doesn't shy away from it being a problem.
Okay.
The Bible doesn't, and you'd know this, Robert, if you read them trying to understand who Christ is, and they're there with him in the flesh. If you don't believe that Jesus exists or whatever, I don't know, but if you take the narrative seriously, we're talking about the narrative at the very least here. And
what's the narrative?
The narrative, the Christian narrative, the gospel, the Judaic-Christian narrative. Okay, it's. I think it identifies that trying to understand who Jesus is a problem. It doesn't shy away from that. His disciples, I don't think, truly really understood who he was until he supposedly had come back, and then they understood him. And then I believe that they actually understood him better when he ascended and came down as spirit. Then they really understood who he was when he was in. And I think that's how it plays out in the narrative. But it's a very difficult thing to do because then Jesus becomes somewhat unknown because he becomes a spirit. You can't see him anymore. But that's exactly how we need to pursue him, as an unknown. And that's how it's laid out, and that's how Paul lays it out. Is he's you have to seek him in a way that's unknown, and it has to be that way.
But that's what I was asking about the cover 2 analogy. Again, if you don't know what cover 2 is, I'm not putting you in as a coach, because the worst thing that happens is the other team scores a touchdown. And when you say Jesus is an unknown, I actually don't care if Jesus existed. I've never gotten to that argument nor debate, but this is way more than just. Well, how about this? Let me ask you, so we're on the same page. Because again, for me, this was a big hang-up. And I actually do want you to think about this, if it's okay with you. If I die, if I have a stroke tonight, I'm going to die as an atheist. What do you think is going to happen to me?
Well, I don't
in my afterlife. What's that?
I don't claim to try and have the ultimate answer for what's on after death, and I deliberately don't try to do it, because it doesn't matter how I answer, Robert. It could be somewhat problematic. It doesn't matter which way I answer; it's going to be problematic.
I actually think it does, because, like,
well, if I'm wrong,
go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead,
Robert.
Hit me.
I'm not God, Robert. I think you can agree with that. Good.
Because if you were God, I would believe in you.
Well, you do believe in me. You do believe in me.
I have more evidence for Ryan than I have for God.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, that's a statement within itself.
Yes.
But if we don't know, okay, and there are a field of Christians who believe that there is no hell, and there are some. Okay, and there is a theology out there that where Christians believe there is.
Quick, I'm going to hit your pause button real fast. So for the ones who don't believe in hell, are you saying, are those the annihilation people? That when I die, I just don't wake up?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that.
By all means, keep going.
I think I can throw something in there, but there are people who just think that it's a separation from God. So you're not near God. That's it.
But I think we're playing with a very serious issue, and it is a serious issue, Robert, and you have to highlight it. I have no problem with it being highlighted. I just don't know how to dwell in the place, because if I say there's no hell, okay, and there is one, I've stuffed everybody up dramatically. I've stuffed them up big time. Why did they listen to me? Okay, and now if I say there is one, a lot of people are going to be deterred by that. So you can't win, and we can't know. And it seems to me the best idea is to leave it with God. But we do know about smoke, and we know that there's a lot of smoke in the world. And that is what we have to avoid.
Let me jump in real quick. So the whole thing of hell isn't what is keeping me from a religion. Because for there to be a hell, there first needs to be a God, and then we need to figure out.
So you understand that? That's interesting that you say that, because you could also say that. Well, Peter said, in order there to be a hell, there needs to be a God.
Yeah,
well, I could then make the point, in order to be life, there needs to be a God. And it seems to me we have life. and life is evident.
Yeah,
but then you.
but why
there's-
would
go ahead,
we need
go
why
ahead.
would we need a God to get to life?
Well, how do you define life?
What you're experiencing right now?
How do you
Well,
define
what's
life?
the difference?
I can
What's
do
the
it.
difference? What's the difference between an object and how does it? At what point is an object living or not living?
I don't know the exact definition for what life is, but
Well, we talk about it a lot.
we're
Well,
talking.
must have some
we
idea of
can
it.
we can actually define like I can tell you about mammals, right? There's actually 5 points of homeostasis. What makes a mammal, right? And one of them is converting oxygen to carbon dioxide. So if you're just going to stick with us, right, and we can actually define death. You don't need a heart. I can go get you a heart, but brain death is death. That is the final stamp. So we can actually define life, and I've made this argument before. When a common thing with Christians is just kind of to scoop God on top of everything, right? So like, if there has to be a hell, then there has to be a God. If there's life, then there has to be a God. I was like, well, I just took a poop, so clearly there has to be a God. So you just kind of scoop God on top of everything, which again, I'm actually still kind of waiting on a definition of God.
I think we veered a little bit off topic.
Oh, we veered all over
the little bit the little bit that I know is that we have self-replicating cells based on DNA. So DNA in our body is made by RNA. We know by accident that RNA can form itself.
Right.
So when
that's a big statement that it can form itself. By
no,
accident.
because that's been observed in the lab by accident. It wasn't supposed to happen. They weren't looking for that, and did an experiment. And when they came back after a few days, RNA had spontaneously formed itself. So RNA is what creates DNA, which is the building block of life. So we at least have, I think there are eight or nine. There are 8 or 9 hypotheses how life can come from non-life, all of which could be correct and have happened simultaneously or in succession.
Yeah.
So we know in order for life to get here, we don't need a God. That is the part that we know.
So it's naturalism. Is that how you define it? Naturalism. Naturalism.
I'm as I said, I'm not an expert, and I said if you wanna have a conversation on evolution and maybe what we know about abiogenesis.
Well, I guess what I was trying to get, the point I was trying to get at was, and it's a very simple point, and it doesn't require. If you take that naturalistic viewpoint that everything is of matter, and it's just matter, I said, part of what I said right at the beginning is I do believe I'm 100% physical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So but now, what if that's the it's almost like you have the Big Bang, okay, and then you have all this interweaving of energy, time, and space, which then somehow produces the cell, which then produces an organ and an organism, and then you have a species, and then you have multiple species, and so forth.
We're about to say the same thing.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Hold on. I need to jump in because we had a question earlier. I was just scrolling up to go back and find it. Beach Price mentioned it earlier. We can measure everything. One thing we can't measure and we don't know that we have and we probably don't have is the soul.
And that's what I was about to ask.
And you started out with the soul.
Yes.
What is the soul? What is the soul?
Well, and it's believe me, this is all tying in together. And sorry, I went maybe diverted a little bit, but it's all tying in together. And let me ask you this question. Maybe this is a better way to actually get to what I was trying to say earlier. Would you refer to me as a who, or would you refer to me as an it? And how do you distinguish the difference between them both?
Okay,
and when did you get to that point where you decided that we're no longer a who and we are?
I can answer that. I would refer to you as a who, and that is based on the fact that you have a mind. The mind, we know, is an emergent property of the brain, and we humans assign personhood to someone who has a mind, whether or not that is working correctly or not, because you can be born with brain damage. You can have an accident, get brain damage. There are lots of things. I mean, but the moment you have a mind, which is the emergent property of a brain, then you have personhood. And that occurs at birth. At birth, you start taking in things. You start to build synapses in your brain to develop your mind. And that's where you get personhood. So that's why I would address you as a who.
But I still think by definition, if you're going to say to me that all I am is physical, by definition, and you can extract everything out of physical, I don't know what gives us the right to then say all of a sudden we're a who, and what you're saying is that there's two parallel existence.
No, well, first, let me jump in real fast. Let me jump in real fast.
From being an it to a who. No, that's what we're saying.
Well, no.
Yes, it is.
No, I have. Well, I'll speak for myself because I have not said all you are is physical. I'm actually still waiting on a definition of a God and a soul. So before I can go forward,
no, I can't.
I can't. Go ahead, Ryan.
But I'm still waiting for a definition of who.
As I said,
but I think we're going backwards.
Robert, time out. As I said,
go ahead, hit it.
The who comes from someone who has a mind, which is an emergent property of the brain.
What do you mean emergent?
It's an emergent property. So your brain, you form, when you grow up, you form synapses in your brain to interpret what your surroundings are and how to respond to it. Then then you develop.
But that's all still it. It's still all derived in an entity of it.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not an it.
Okay. Good. So you've nailed a point right there where you believe that it's no longer an it and it becomes a who. Now we can't understand it. You've been able to extrapolate beyond our understanding that there is a nature there, even if it's just a small window or a small door where we identify as a who and no longer as an it. I believe it's in that place we access the.
Can I jump in real fast? Real fast?
Hold on. Maybe this will clarify things. So next to me is my dog. She's suffering because it's extremely hot here and she can't cope with the heat. I refer to my dog as a who because she clearly has a mind. She can think. She knows when she did something wrong. She exposes guilt when she did something wrong. I don't have to ask. I only have to step into the room. She's 8 days short of her 16th birthday. So, and
happy birthday to her.
And wants to
happy birthday.
Who wants to say hi? So, but things are getting tougher. So at times she doesn't have time to make it in time to let me know I need to go outside. So she'll have an accident in the house. She immediately feels guilty. That means she has a mind. She can think. She knows she did something wrong and looks at me and is expecting punishment because she did something wrong. That is a who. That's not an it.
It is a who.
Yes.
I think it's a who, but it's an extraordinary who. And to get to a who,
I can tell you she is.
From an it is an incredible thing. And even if you can 100% say that it all comes from the fact from a physical place
It does.
into a physical phenomena, then by definition,
So,
you still cannot say that you're more than we still cannot say that we're more than an it by definition if we're being honest and we're being
and I will be honest, and I got to jump in real fast. So, one, I think we're kind of, and don't take this as an insult, but I think this is almost typical Christianity where we have completely backed off the topic. I still need a definition of a God. No, wait. It is because now me and Peter are backpedaling. Right? Again, I've been there, dude. I dig it. Much love, though. But here's the thing, though. When I kept telling you about 30,000 different definitions of Christianity, and one Jesus, but all these different interpretations.
Yeah.
Slaves. And we can argue all day long. Slaves here in America were considered its. We were not people, right? And you know where they got that from?
Yeah.
Christianity. Well, they absolutely got it from Christianity. So when I say there's no one universal standard, and also one more thing. And so it's kind of like why I won't go down the evolution talk, because we have evolutionary biologists to have this discussion. There's a whole branch of science called sociology, which discusses the nature of human behavior. And so it's like, you can stop me and Peter all day long. Neither one of us are a sociologist. So I'm going to ask you, have you ever asked an actual sociologist this question?
Which question?
About a who. Because if you want to know who can give you an actual answer, it's like cover 2 when you had no idea.
I don't think they will be able to give
No. But here's the thing. At least with the scientists, they will tell you, I could be wrong, but this is what the evidence shows us. But you're sitting here talking to You're still talking to two atheists. Neither one of us are sociologists. So I'm wondering, have you talked to a sociologist about what defines a who? Because that's why, again, I don't go down this road with evolution. I'm brain damaged, right? I'm a C student. I barely graduated. So you can sit here and stuff me all day long. But if you ask a sociologist, they may give you a better answer. Do you want an answer?
But I think you need the answer.
What's that?
You want to? I think as an atheist, you need the answer. Is what a
no. The only thing atheism tells you, like, how about this? How much do you put your faith in Zeus?
An atheist doesn't need to know that.
No. I'm asking you a question. How much do you put your faith in Zeus?
I don't know. It depends on if Zeus is actually the god that exists. Do
you think that Zeus exists? Do you think Zeus exists? Because I can tell you, I don't think your God exists. Do you think Zeus exists?
You did ask me earlier to define God, and I haven't quite got there yet. And
that's my fault. I'm asking. No problem. That's my fault. But now I'm asking you, do you think Zeus exists?
What does Zeus? It means. What is the meaning of the word Zeus?
Zeus sits on Mount Olympus. He is the god of Greek gods. Yeah. Zeus is that guy. Do you believe in Zeus?
Well, I believe in the God of gods. So
and is that Zeus?
It's got to be pretty close. It's got to be pretty close to the.
What about Ganesh? How about Ganesh? Do you believe that God has an elephant's head? How about that, Ryan?
I don't believe that God is an it. I believe that God is a who.
That's not what I asked. I asked, do you think God has an elephant's head?
Hold on. Okay, so
I'm putting your feet to the fire, my man. I'm putting your feet to the fire.
Hold on. So you said you believe.
I asked you to do it. I asked you to push pressure on me.
Yeah.
And I am. This is what I do. By all means. Good. I'm glad we're smiling.
You said God is a who. What defines? That's
actually.
No, hold on. Well, what defines God as a who?
Well, if we can identify as a who, it leaves this. That's where, and this is what I'm trying to get at. And okay, you might not feel comfortable calling it as a soul, but a religious person would call it a soul. The part of us that goes from beyond being an it to something that's transcendent of the flesh. We call it a soul, and I believe that's tied up in the identity.
I hate to interrupt you. You call it a soul. I don't believe it exists. I call it a soul. I don't believe it exists. And
about to say, where is it?
And so here's the thing. as I said, I identify a who as someone
Yeah.
having a mind. A mind is an emergent property of a brain. So if God
Yes.
is a who, does
Right.
God have a brain?
Well, I would assume he's intellectual.
He
But that's a
But
is
good
a
point,
guy.
Peter. Because
Is
then
it?
how do you do? But that's a great point, Peter. It's hitting the nail right on the head, and it depends on where you lay. Where does intellectual live? Does it live in the brain, or does it live
Yes.
outside of the brain?
It does live in the brain. We can test it. We can measure it. We can
Right.
even take pictures of it. So let's say I was
it's
to
so
ask
it's-
you a question. And this is
Yeah.
a thing that has been tested. People who think they can talk to God or God speaks to them. They were put in they were put in an MRI. They looked at what part of the brain lights up when
Yeah.
when the doctor asked them a question. Okay, that particular part of the brain lights up. The
Yes.
moment God speaks to them, the part of the brain where they talk to themselves light up, which would lead to thinking that not something from the outside is talking; it is all happening in your brain. But when I said
Is that the who
if
part
God
of this, or is that the his
if
part
God
of this?
has if God has no, but if God has
Not
a
made,
mind,
man, right.
if God has a mind, then he has to have a brain. If he has to have a brain, then God is material.
But this is you're asking me exactly the same question that I'm asking about ourselves.
But yeah, before we go any, you still have to. Okay, and like I said, we are going backwards, and so I want to try and put us back over here. I still need what is a God, what is
Okay.
a soul, and hold on. And when we're still talking about it, and like I said, you still haven't told me whether you believe in Zeus. You still haven't told me whether you believe in Ganesh. And again, this is what I'm saying. When there's 30,000 denominations, one Jesus, we still don't have it clear cut. Because I'm going to tell you something. Like I said before, the
Yes.
people who bomb abortion clinics and kill the people inside, they've got
Yeah.
scriptural backing. The people who hug babies around the neck and say, I love you, also have scriptural backing. So I'm going to ask you, which one of those is right?
I keep telling you, you're not listening to the answer that I'm
I
telling you.
actually am, and I'm kind of waiting for a straight one.
Well, you said about 3 different questions there. What was
Okay,
your
so
answer?
let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
You keep scooping God on top of stuff.
How do I
What
do
is
that?
God?
How do I haven't even given you a definition of God. So
And
how do
that's
I
what I'm
keep
waiting
scooping-
for. And that's actually
how-
what I'm waiting for. Because before you can attribute God to anything, I need to know, like right now,
Right.
this is a Superman coffee mug. I can define it. I can demonstrate it. It is real. I can go show you a whole bunch. I can demonstrate beyond any shadow of a doubt. I can tell you I'm a Saints football fan. Everything about me says I love the New Orleans Saints. I've got ink on my body telling you I love the Saints.
Yes.
I would love just a fraction of that kind of definition and evidence about them by all means.
Because
By all means.
but you yourself potentially are the answer to that question.
Okay, which
Because
is great. And you know what? I can
because
say
you
the
said-
same
Robert,
thing.
Robert,
I
hold-
can say the same
Robert-
thing about Drew Brees.
Rob-
Drew Brees is the
Robert,
greatest
time-
quarterback in the
time-
history of the NFL.
Robert.
He made you.
Robert, time out. Let him
Go ahead.
answer. Let him answer.
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead. Hit me.
Because you have because both of you have identified yourselves as it, as in physical body, and who you've given yourself two ways
No, no,
well
no,
well,
no,
there's-
no.
so
I
there's
don't.
just one,
I
or is
don't
there just
define.
two?
I don't. I don't give
So is
myself
who
the
is the same-
definition. I don't give myself the definition of an it. I'm a who.
but your body isn't it, is
Yes.
it not? Right. So we exist as an it, but also as a who. So we have two types of existence.
But
existences.
why is that important? I mean, we are.
It's
we are
very
made-
important. It's
we are-
very important because it's in that realm that religion is born out of. It's in that.
No,
it's
no,
in
no,
that
no, no. The opposite. Religion is not born out of the material, or out of the. It might be born out of the mind, but it is no. A God is nowhere until you define what a God is. It's a meaningless concept until you have a good definition for God. So,
yeah, I agree with that.
So, what is your definition for God?
All right, good. We'll go down that way. Well, I broke it down into basic points. I think the Bible has. I think fundamentally God. Anyway, we'll go from go from one.
Hit it.
It starts off. If you're going to believe in a God, it says Creator. It says it, and you'll know this. You know this, Robert.
Try me.
The first thing it says in the Scripture in Genesis is God is the Creator.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me, if I'm going to explore, and there's viewers out there who are going to explore the idea of there being a God, well, a probably good place to start is the idea that He's the Creator, and that's how the Bible identifies God straight away. It's just the Creator. I don't think that's a hard idea to grasp.
It actually is, but go ahead.
It is and it isn't. Like, it's a hard grasp. We know we didn't create the world. We can agree on that.
Drew Brees created the world.
Okay.
And I've got a book to say so. I can define Drew Brees.
Robert, let him go for
Okay.
Let him go for
Go ahead. Hit it, Ryan.
So, but anyway, if you're going to explore the realm of God,
mm-hmm.
and and there's lots of gods, Robert, as you stated, but a lot of them just are gods of this,
a lot
gods
of claims,
that.
yeah.
But I'm interested in the God above all those little gods, who's the Creator.
Interesting.
God. So, and that's just how it's depicted straight away from. Okay, well, that makes kind of sense. All he's done so far in Scripture is just identified himself as Creator. Full stop. And there's underlying truths that go with it, of course. But first and foremost, Creator. The second time is that he gets a name through, and it's with Moses, and everyone knows it. Is he just identifies as simply as I am.
Right.
Now, so far, I haven't given a lot of flesh to who that, and he's just identified as I am, and that makes sense because who God is who God is.
Right.
We can't.
Now I've got a question, and someone in the chat also pointed it out. Maya Atkinson also pointed it out, so I'll pull her up on screen. In Genesis 1, it doesn't say God created heaven and earth. It says gods, plural, created. It says Elohim. Elohim is plural.
Yes.
Whereas further on in the Bible, it will refer to a single God.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's confusing, but God is a title. It's a title. God is.
But
if there are language as a title.
But if there are multiple gods that have the same title, who have created the earth, then gave us a description of how it was created that we know for a fact is completely false, then how do we get to a single creator God?
Well, the best way I can answer that, try and do it quickly, is if you're married, okay, there's two individuals, but you're one. You're united as one.
Metaphorically, yeah.
Well, everyone views you as one entity. The Lord does everything to as much as it possibly can, but you become one. So you're two and you become one. So we're just dealing with the concept of God as creator. And obviously the Christian idea of God is that he plays out as the story or the narrative goes as a what's the word I'm looking for? Father, Son, Holy Spirit. As the story, as the narrative, the Trinity. That's the word I was looking for. As the narrative plays out.
Told you I knew what I was talking about.
But
Don't
so
underestimate.
and
But it just identifies the title as God, and this is what I'm saying. It is. I said very, very early on, it's a very simple explanation of God, and it has to be. It has to be. It's making it simple deliberately. It's not making it hard. It's
If I
making
may.
it simple.
If I may.
Yeah.
So to me, you just contradicted yourself. Because in the very beginning, you said God has to be beyond our comprehension. And now you said it's very simple. Right? Like, again.
True. I did
Right?
a little
So,
bit there.
no, like,
Supposedly.
you know who this beautiful lady is? Can you see her?
I'll answer that. The
Hold on.
entirety of God.
Wait. That's my mom. I can demonstrate my mom. And as far as I'm concerned, she's way more powerful because she made this crazy son of a bitch. Right? My mom is not beyond my comprehension. Right?
Yeah.
I've got a relationship with my mom. My mom used to whip my ass when I was a kid, but she eventually stopped. I can define my mom. I can tell you where she was born. I can tell you everything.
Yes.
She's not beyond my comprehension. I can hang my hat on the
No,
concept. Wait. I can hang my hat on the concept of mom. So far, and I'm going to be honest with you, all you've done is right as my dog just. Jesus, Bubba, that was not graceful at all. But the Bubs, this motherfucker. Okay, so all you've done so far is name a whole bunch of attributes.
No, what attributes?
You know, wait. And then you hung your hat on that attribute. Now, if I had said that about my girlfriend, you would say, dude, you're a virgin. You there's no way you're making this person up. And so again, I really am looking for a concrete definition.
But
you know what I mean? Because I can show you a picture of my girlfriend, my mom, my dad, my sister. I can show you the bubble right now. And I'm not confusing because, again, I've been a Christian, I think, longer than you've been alive. And
I don't know how to answer your question because you're asking me. Because
I'm asking you for a God.
You're asking me to give you a description
of
what I believe about God.
Yeah.
And as soon as I start going and talking about the description of God, you say, "Oh, you're just late. You're just putting God on it."
And you want to know why?
What I'm supposed to do.
No, and here's the reason why. Like I said, there's absolutely no question that beautiful woman is my mother, and I'm looking for at least half of that. Now, again, if I sat here and I told you, my girlfriend is omnipresent. She's all powerful. She can do this. She can do that. She's the reason why you have headphones on. She's the reason why my dogs are sitting right here behind me. She's the reason why I'm in New Orleans. All I've done was put attributes on a girlfriend without demonstrating an actual partner.
Let me try and clarify this. So,
by all means,
Ryan.
I hear kids, Ryan. Boy, you are a busy man.
It's just a tweet just going off on my foot.
No problem. So, here's the thing. When Robert asked you for a definition, you went to the Bible. The Bible says this, the Bible says that, and so that has to be a God. But in order for there to be a God who gave you the Bible, there first needs to be a God.
Yes, that makes sense.
So we can all read what the Bible says and how the Bible describes God, and I would go as far as say and how it gets it wrong, because it says that Jesus was fully God and fully human.
Fully man. Yep.
That means that Jesus knows everything God knows. Yet in the Bible we see Jesus talking to God, and the Holy Spirit is present for that conversation. That makes no sense if Jesus already knows that he's going to ask himself a question, knowing what he's going to answer himself and what he's going to do with that answer. It makes no sense. So, and this is why we ask people to come up with a definition and not read from the Bible. Because
I'm trying. I don't know how to do that though. I don't know what you mean by a definition of God.
And that is the point. And that is the point what we're trying to get at.
If you're Jordan Peterson, right? If you're Jordan Peterson, he does it quite well, and I think he's definitely
let me say you one thing before you go there. I think you're a lot more honest than Jordan Peterson.
I agree, like 5,000%
And
more.
he may do it quite well, but I don't think
Yeah,
he's honest. You at least are honest because when
I
I
hope
just
so. I
no
hope
no
so.
I can tell you why, because I just asked you a question and you say I have no idea how to do that.
yeah, yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
honest answer because I don't think
Agreed,
anyone on the
agreed.
planet can honestly do that.
Well,
And that
because you're asking to define God, and I think the very definition of God is undefinable.
okay,
Okay,
so then let me ask you a question. What convinces you that such a being exists?
good question. Great question.
Well, I believe that I'm a being, and I value who I am, and I want to value myself beyond just what I see
Okay,
and feel and think. I want to believe that I'm more than just a physical matter of just um, exhaustive science that has brought
sure.
me into being. I want to believe more than that. I said right at the beginning, I want to believe beyond
I
belief.
remember. Yeah,
And it seems to me like the only way to do it is to is is if you believe that you are a who, and okay, I accept your understanding or definition of a who, but I want to believe that there's also a soul to it.
Okay,
I
great.
want to believe that, and
and
if there is a
and that
soul, you
is
can't.
Yeah,
a great answer. That is a
it
great
is.
answer.
Yeah,
And my follow up question would be, why would you want to believe? Why not believe where the evidence leads? Instead, go out and look for something for which there's no evidence. You
Because
say
of that,
does
there is
let's
there.
okay.
Well, what?
Let me
Yeah,
let
yeah.
me let me add something to that. You
Mm.
say you want to believe, but what if that what you want to believe doesn't exist? How would that affect your life?
great question.
Mm. I'll probably be very similar.
Say it.
I'll be. I would, if I look, I don't think I'd be a happy person. I
Why
think I'd
not?
be less happy.
Why not?
If I may, Ryan, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead and answer.
yeah.
Then I'm going to jump in. Then
Why
I'm going to
not?
answer that.
I always refer to I let people know that we have an intake. So we did have an intake. We had a conversation before this show happens. I always do that. It helps. You get less aggressive people online when you have a conversation when
Sure.
people know where you're coming from. I had a
Mm.
great conversation with you, longer
Yes.
than I expected. Usually, I think we could do an intake in, let's say, 10 minutes. I line out what the show's about. You line out what you will and will not agree on. So things being on camera, using your real name, supplying a picture, stuff like that. That is basically all that is needed for an intake.
Mm.
Every theist in the past 4 or 5 shows, I had a great conversation apart from all of that because they came across to me as being honest people, and as I said just now, you gave the honest answer. If I need to put you in a box, I would not put you in the same box that I would Jordan Peterson in
Excellent.
because I don't think he's honest. You're at least being honest. The fact that you say I want to believe, that that is a really honest question. And my question would be, you say you would be less happy. So what what is added to your life that you think you wouldn't have if you didn't have the belief in a God? What would be missing?
Well, I I think I said to you, and it was an honest statement, and
It was.
I believe you. I believe
and
you.
no. When I was conversing with you on Twitter, and you asked me to come onto your show, and I knew it wasn't. I knew what the answer was going to be before I even said it, of course. But I had to be true to who I was,
Mm-hmm.
and I really do feel like the only way I can, if I was to lose God, I would lose a huge part of who I am.
Yeah.
And I said to you before I came on the show, I said to you, for me to really try and show an idea of God is I'd have to pray.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to pray. Because I've had a life where I've built it around prayer. I've been praying from a long time. And as I've grown older, my prayer life somewhat evolved and changed. But I really do believe that I'm conversing with something that is deep and difficult and challenging, and you don't get it right. And a good teacher, a religious teacher, will tell you that you're going to struggle with it and it's going to be difficult.
Right. Ryan, have you ever been an atheist? Can I ask you that question?
Well, I was 7 when my parents became Christians.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't Christians before that, and I think like my mother didn't want a bar of it. My dad was Catholic, and he was an altar boy, but then when he became an adult, he went away. He no longer believed in God so much. And then when I was 7, and my sister would have been about 11, and that's when they wanted us to have a better education, so they sent us to a private school, which happened to be a Baptist school, and that began our Christian journey.
Okay.
Right there and then.
If I may, because so at 7,
Yes.
right? I'm just going to be upfront, right? At 7 years old, you still can't keep your underwear clean, right?
Yeah,
So and congratulations. And I've always said, and I'll repeat again, if your Jesus makes you a better person, then I like your Jesus. I never knew anything other than Christianity from the moment I came out and took my first breath until the age of 39. So I think I can speak for both sides. Again, if I may ask online, how old are you again?
Me?
Yes.
How old am I now?
Yes.
35.
Okay. I was a Christian for 39 years. I was a Christian longer than you've been alive, right?
Yeah.
You know the difference between me now as an atheist and me as a Christian?
No.
Nothing.
Yeah. No.
So and I'm saying this because when you're saying like you would be sad, you know what? You wouldn't be. You wouldn't be. And again, wait. Just please.
Yeah.
And I'm only using this as an example, right? I have fought for others in my first 30 some odd years of my life. You know what I did last year? You want to know why it's atheist with a bad limp? I saw a dog during rush hour traffic that was about this big, and that dog was doing everything it could to get run over by a car. The mother was right over there. She was crying so hard, she was about to faint. I got out of my car, and I ran that dog down. On my very last step, as I bent over and picked the dog up, I ruptured my Achilles. That lady was so panicked. She took the dog from my arms. She walked away without saying thank you, and I laid on the fucking concrete for about what seemed to be an eternity before finally someone said, "Do you need a ride back to your car?" And I would have done that as a Christian, and I would have done that as an atheist. And so I'm only saying that so you know, again, I'm not trying to take anything away from you that you weren't ready to give up. Like I said, if your Jesus would make you do the exact same thing, then do that shit, man. But don't take this the wrong way. Don't be afraid to walk away from your faith just in case you're afraid of, now I'm going to be sad. And I wrote this down. Dude, because to me, religion is the worship of your own ego. Yes. Please notice how you and your God agree on everything, including the stuff you don't agree on. Now, if I would have saved that dog as a Christian, you know what I would have said? God made me do it. As an atheist, I say, you know what? I don't want to see Bubba run over, so I'm not going to watch that lady get her dog run over. So again, if you're holding on to any of this for even that much fear of what happens if you let go, to me, you're in an abusive relationship. And one more thing, and like I said, dude, you sound cool. We just met almost 90 minutes ago. And so again, you got two dogs. I'm sorry if your religion makes you be a great person, dude, whether you can define a God or not, who gives a shit? But again, the only reason why you're going to hear from me is if your God makes you do fucked up shit, like call gay people faggots or say that this person isn't as good as you are because they don't have the same God. So, I mean, I pushed you. I'm not going to lie. But again, don't be, if any part of your belief, and I'm glad people did that to me. Look where I am because I got pushed and now I'm a non-believer. But if there's a million nails in front of you and you're hanging a million hats, and this hat right here, number 999,999, is fear of what happens if you don't believe, you are in an abusive relationship. You are. There's if any part of my relationship with a significant other is hinged on this person's fear of what happens if they're not with me, that person's in an abusive relationship. So just keep that in mind as you define a God or say why it is you are or not a Christian. Fear should never be a part of an equation of a loving relationship ever.
I wanna add something to that because of the fact that we do these shows, I get emails from people who watch the shows. I've had multiple emails of people who said, I walked away from religion and I don't know who I am anymore.
Yeah.
Because my God was such a big part of my identity. I have no clue where I am, what I need to do. And the only advice that I give people who come to me with something like that is this is going to be a struggle. But you're going to find out that every decision you make is the decision you make. And you don't need a God for that. If you and I were going to read the Bible and we were just going to be focusing on the bad part. Let's take Noah's flood, where God killed humanity bar 8 people. If I were to ask you, would you have done the same thing? Probably the answer would be no. That was a rhetorical question, not entirely, but let's focus on what we talked about earlier. Do you think gay people need to be stoned to death?
Great question.
It is a very good question.
Should be a simple answer.
So,
What do you think?
From my, and remember at the beginning, I said.
No, I want to know what
Ryan.
Ryan says.
That's right, because that's what is important to me, and the answer for me is no.
Exactly.
No, I don't believe they need to be stoned.
Exactly. No. And
No.
just with that answer, you're better than your God.
No.
I don't want to insult you, but you are.
Because I believe. No, but you're telling me who my God is. How do you do that?
No,
because
I'm talking.
Because we're going off of what the Bible says.
I'm going off.
No, because
I'm going off what the Bible says.
Okay, I'll go to my last
Here's the
point.
thing. Here's the thing that I wanted to demonstrate. Here's the thing. You said I would be less happy if there's.
Well, it's like saying you'd be less happy without your wife, wouldn't you? If you have a relationship with your wife, I believe I have a relationship with God. If I have and He's been and I believe He's been faithful to me.
Okay, what is your relationship?
It's one of prayer.
Okay.
And deep. And
does he ever show up? Does he answer all your prayers? Does he always answer?
No, he doesn't always answer. No, But sometimes that might be the best way to answer a question. You don't always answer the question that your children ask you either.
If your wife did the same thing.
Did the prayer?
No.
I'm divorced.
No. If you had a question for your wife, and you go to your wife, you answer a question, she looks at you, turns around, walks away. What would you say?
Well, it depends on the question you asked her. She might have a right to turn and walk the other direction.
Well, honey, did you have sex with someone else even though we have a monogamous relationship?
Sorry, what was that?
If you asked your wife, who was showing the signs of sex with someone else, and you hadn't gotten laid that day, and you said, baby, I need to know, because we are in a monogamous relationship, did you have sex with someone else? That is a yes or no question. And I'm going to be honest with you, Ryan, 90 minutes later, I'm still waiting on an actual definition of your God. If your wife took 90 minutes to kind of, sort of, not really answer the question of, did you have sex with someone else, what would you believe her?
Well, she hasn't answered. But I
See, to me, that is an incredibly simple question. If I ask my girl, because if we're in a monogamous relationship, and I said at 5 o'clock, I need to know, did you have sex with Jim across the street? And if 90 minutes later I hadn't gotten a yes or no, I would be so kind as to put all her stuff in a Glad hefty sack, and I would say, your stuff's on the front step, and when you can come back to me with an answer, then maybe we can talk about our relationship. So the question is, if your wife or your partner, if you ask this person, did you have sex with someone else, and it took them 90 minutes not to answer, what would your response be?
I've never.
I'm not asking. This is hypothetical. Like right now, no one's kicking me in my balls, right? But if you say, Robert, would it hurt if someone just Mark Mosley'd you right now in your crotch? I would say yes. That's a simple question.
I'm just struggling to understand how the context of that question you're asking me has anything to do with the.
That's a great question, and here's a great answer. So, I have asked you, and again, I totally get it, man. I'm not dogging you out. These are honest questions. I have asked you for a clear-cut definition of a God, and so far, I've gotten a lot of attributes, but I haven't got a definition. I've showed you my mom at least 3 times. I've showed you I'm a Saints fan at least a dozen times. And I've simply asked you, with no God reference, if your partner, if you ask them, look, you were sure, I need to know, did you have sex with Jim? Your name is Ryan. Did you have sex with, and we lost Ryan?
Oops.
Like I said, I just think that was a very simple question.
It was.
Yeah. And so
we'll have to see. He's back. He's back.
Okay, Ryan, my main man, I told you God wants you to be here. And so again, if you can you hear me?
I don't know why it dropped out that time.
Yeah, you know why? Satan. But God brought you back because God wants you to answer the question. So I prayed while you were gone, and he said, Ryan needs to answer the question. And so if you asked your girl, this got nothing to do with the God question right now. If you asked your partner, did you have sex with Jim? And it took her 90 minutes to not answer the question, what would your response be? Seriously.
I can't answer the question.
Okay, then that's the difference between you and I. No,
it's that's too personal.
Okay. Hold on. Wait a minute. He said it's too personal. So
I'm divorced, and I can't answer the question because it could complicate me.
You know what? That's very fair. How about this? How about this? Do you have
another example? Might be better.
No, and that's fair, and that's very fair because you know what, Ryan? I found out that my ex-wife was doing the exact same thing. And so I will take back what I said. I will respect your boundaries. I apologize for that question.
No, that's okay.
I didn't know your personal situation. But if you had a dog,
I do.
And your next, great. And I hope you love your dogs a quarter as much as I love mine. If your dog was limping coming away from your neighbor's house,
Right.
and you
Yes.
said, dude, when my dog left my yard, my dog was not limping. My
Yeah.
dog left your yard, and now my
Yes.
dog is limping. Did you hit my dog? And it took your neighbor 9 minutes. And again, I apologize. I didn't know about your personal situation.
No, that's
But
okay.
okay, thank you. And if your dog and if your neighbor took 90 minutes to not answer that question, what would you think about your neighbor? Because to me, I've never kicked a dog like that in my life. So if someone said, "Did you kick that dog?" I'm going to say no. If someone took 90 minutes to not answer the question about kicking your dog, what would you think about that person?
I would
Do you think they were telling you
suspect
the
they
truth? Okay. Now, do you see where I'm coming from? Because again,
Yes.
my man,
Yes.
you have been nothing but honest. And
Mm.
as a former Christian, I get where you're coming from. But again,
Yeah.
I asked you at 5 o'clock about a definition of your God. And I've got we're physical, what's a who, what's an it, right? What's a mind? You see what I'm saying? Like again, how about this? This beautiful lady for the 20th time. That's my mom. You can't see her. The shit's on there. I can demonstrate my mom just like that. And I would want 1/100th of that kind of demonstration or definition of a God. I can define my mom. I can
Yes.
show you my mom, and I can give you evidence. I
but
would
I
want
don't know.
1/100th.
Well, I wouldn't, and you'd agree with me, Robert, in this potentially.
Try me.
Is you wouldn't be able to define your mum 100%.
Yes, I can. I can. Because right
But that-
now,
but
because
that
one of the
means-
best hospitals in the state is Brooke Army Medical Center on Fort Sam Houston. I can go, I can swab my cheek, I can get DNA from my mom, and they can show you up to almost 99% accuracy
Yeah, that's
that
good.
I came from
Yes.
this lady. Now, I'm asking for 9%,
now,
just
now,
9
now,
about
Robert,
your God. Yes, sir.
Robert, you've hitting the nail on the head. So I asked you to define your mother. I said you won't be able to define your mother 100%. And you went straight to the swab. Now that defines the physical. Now, if I was to ask you what your mum's going to say next, will you be able to tell me what she's going to say next?
Yeah, because we're the
No, you
same
wouldn't.
person. Yeah, the hell I can't.
That's right, because it's a who. It comes out of the who.
Right,
comes
and I
out
can
who she is.
define the who. I can't.
No, you can't. You can't define the who 100%. You cannot define your mother 100%.
And you know what? And here's the thing. It's kind of like the whole precept thing. I am maximally certain that Carrie is my mom. I am. And you know what?
Yes, but that's
right.
physical. That's the physical evidence. You have
And
physical
what else
evidence.
do you need? What else do you want?
Hold on. I need to jump in because it's not
Go ahead.
just the physical. It's
That's
also
right.
it's also the mind that has formed that is an emergent property of her brain. You could I know for a fact that I've got at least 2 doppelgangers. One of them was a German terrorist, and that's why I found myself at some point laying on the floor with a gun in my neck.
Damn it.
That guy looked exactly like me. But he wasn't me. There are more things that make up me, and that is my identity, my personhood, my mind.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for Robert's mother. You could run into a clone and then still know that's not my mom, that's not my girlfriend, because
Right.
they're different.
Yes.
So
yes.
it isn't
exactly.
but it is all still material if you want to go there. It is all still material because
Which is the point I was making at the beginning.
Which is?
but
That
so,
how do you go from being an it to a who? And now you're saying that we're just material. It all just means material.
I
no,
don't
it
think
is
That's the point I was
matters.
making.
no, the who is made up of material.
It's
I-
it.
I-
So
you
it's
can-
an it.
You can no, the who is made up of material.
which is an it.
If
Material
no,
is it.
no,
But
because
even if it's an
the
it,
Who,
I mean,
no, because the Who has an independent brain that is different from
independent.
from anyone else.
Yes. Yes.
So
right.
that is
yes.
an individual with opinions, with thoughts, with love, with hate, with everything that makes up a human being, that makes up what has a mind. My God can my God, my dog can hate. Spelled it backwards. My dog can. I know she hates certain people. Those are the people that I don't like. If my dog pulls away from someone, I know for a fact, because dogs can pick up people's minds just by looking at them and how they interact with either people or dogs. That is that we know that for a fact. So the Who is the combination of the body and the mind.
So do you just see the mind as something that is separate from the body?
No, it's emergent property from the body.
Well, to emerge, it means to separate.
No. To emerge, it's an emergent property. It is so the emergent property of the neurons firing in our brain. That has an emergent. Let me try and explain this like this. So in your brain, you have neurons firing, right?
Right.
See that as one bird flying through the air.
Yes.
You see one bird. That's not a mind. Now, I'm pretty sure you know that birds flock and that they can create great shapes in the sky as they move along. They all go in the same direction, but just a little bit later and veer off a little. So it is a cloud that is expanding, contracting, and still going through the air as one. That is how you should visualize the mind. That are your neurons firing. There's a flock. That is the mind. It's an emergent property. It's something you wouldn't see if you look at every individual neuron firing. You can only see that if you see all of it. And then the movement becomes an emergent property of birds flying. The contracting and expanding of the flock is an emergent property of several birds flying, trying to be as in sync as they possibly can. But so that is the emergent property. This is also what a brain is. It's not one neuron. It's the combination of all of your neurons firing in your brain. The emergent property you see there is what we would call a mind. It's hard to explain, but
I know it is.
As you can see, so the flock of birds that you see that goes in the same direction, changes shape all the time, is forming, contracting, expanding. That is the emergent property. That is your brain, and that is still all material because all of the birds are material.
Yes.
But the thing you see seems to be one thing that is in constant movement.
Yes.
And yet it is still all material.
Yes. Yes, it is.
So if that's my best explanation on how to explain what an emergent property is.
So by definition, you concluded yourself that it's all material.
It is all material.
It's all material.
Yeah, I don't believe there is something immaterial because we have no evidence for anything immaterial.
Yeah, I don't want to believe that about myself.
Which is fine.
Okay, but
I want to. Yeah.
Okay,
I find that very difficult to believe that about myself.
Why not?
Because,
So what is the problem with believing that?
Well, there's a few problems because then then all we really are is a property of science. And science being on top of science. And then more science.
No.
And then we just saw science.
No, science is an emergent property from people. Which makes
it depends on how you define science. So there's a few ways you can define science. You can define science as the person understanding the world, or the world itself you can define as science. It depends on how you define it. But either way you define it, everything appears to me to be just science.
Okay. So how I define science is something that humans do in order to figure out the reality they find themselves in.
So is science responsible for who you are?
No.
So what's responsible for who you are?
Humans are responsible for what science is and how far it got us.
We didn't do the Big Bang.
No. But
right. So
the Big Bang isn't. But the Big Bang isn't science. The Big Bang is something that happened in reality. The Big Bang is it's not even called the Big Bang, by the way. It's that was a nickname that stuck. The theory itself is how we explain the origin of the universe. And we came to that decision by following the evidence. So the Big Bang itself is not science. That is the laws that is the laws of physics at work, and we don't even know what those laws are because we can't look past Planck time. That's where our laws of physics break down. We know the laws of physics in our universe. We figured those out.
Yeah.
If I can jump in, it's like science, like logic, it's simply a description of reality, right? So when you say all we are is science, and again, it's to me, this is again typical kind of Christianity, and I've heard I'm not saying you are, but like apologists say this, right? It's like fish to philosophers. All we are is like some cosmic accident, and it's just science is simply a description of reality, right? If I light a fire and I put my hand on it, I'm going to experience what's called a thermal wound, right? Your body can't tell the difference between extreme hot and extreme cold. I've got a scar on the back of my left thigh to prove it because I sat on ice for 3 hours. I've got a 2nd-degree burn on the back of my thigh as a result. Is that all that I am? No. I just got a 3rd-degree burn on a 2nd-degree burn on my leg. So when you say like all we are is science, no, science is simply a description of the reality that's around us. And when you say things like, you're right. Embrace reality. Because here's the thing. One day I'm going to stop breathing. And the people who care about me are going to be sad. When Bubba stops breathing, I'm going to cry so hard I won't be able to stand up straight. And you're right. You know what? Reality sometimes sucks. And so when you say, that you don't want it to be just that, I'm going to be honest with you. That's all we are. And it's not for you personally, for me, for Bubba, for Peter. Again, and I've said this before, it's not the 4 numbers over here on the left. It's not the 4 numbers over here on the right. It's that dash in between. What did you do while you were still here? And if there's an afterlife, great. And it really seems like Christianity makes you focus on what happens after you die, right? And you said this in the beginning. This world is dark and everything else. Not if you make it. No. That's why I went out and chased that goddamn dog. That's why I've got a limp now. This is why I do what I do for a living, right? So again, it's like when you say it's like, well, is that all we are? You know what? Yeah. This is it. But wait, but this is it. And you can make it depressing, or you can make it sexy and vibrant. And you know what I choose to do? I make it fucking sexy and vibrant. I've always said I'm trying to cram as much life into this life as humanly possible. Because I can't control when I was born, and I sure as hell can't control when I die. Trust me, I know that right now. All that I've got is this right here. So I don't give a shit if science is all that I am. You know what I know I am right now? I'm a dude talking to another dude. I'm in Texas and you're in fucking Australia, right? And you just fucking smiled and I just smiled and Bubba's over there snoring and fucking farting. And this is all we got, right? So it's like, you can, it's a military Satan and we say it in football. Embrace the suck, right? And so again, if this is all we are, you know what? So what? Make the most out of it, man. And if there is an afterlife, great. But fuck it. Live your life like there isn't.
I think that's what I was almost alluding to right at the beginning, is to just very much just focus on the here and now. And if there is a God, I do believe that God has a responsibility in some respect to and that might be the last point I had.
Go ahead.
I had about 6 definitions of God. I don't know if you can see
I've got notes too. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. I see who on the very bottom.
Well, and we've already talked about that enough.
Right.
But just above that, I put it under unknown.
Love. Yeah, I see that. Unknown. Right.
And I think that's if there are people who are watching and they are interested in pursuing a God, and you don't know where to start, well, start with the idea that he's unknown, and it's a safe place to start. And that is what Paul says. When there's all these people in this particular part of the New Testament, and I can't remember where it is, and they're debating about which God is which, Paul points to the unknown God and says, pursue that one. And now you don't have to have...
Now I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Now I've got
I've got a response. Go ahead.
Because earlier you said, I have a relationship with God. And now you say, God is unknown. So you have a relationship with something that is unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
because
I
don't believe, because God, if you take the idea of God, and I'm not suggesting the reality of God, just take the idea of God. You have to think, well, okay, we can grasp something about God, but if indeed God is God, then we're not going to be, I can't tell you all of who God is. That would be silly. And that's why I'm asking you that you should keep me accountable to the idea of God that I have. Because I can't comprehend the full God. I can't do that. I don't think any religious organization has properly done it and can possibly do it. Because as soon as it does, then you've lowered God down to us. But that you can't do that with God. He has to be beyond us, which makes him somewhat unknown.
And I say, to lower God, how about this? If your next door neighbor was eating steak and y'all were sitting at the same table and a piece of steak got stuck on their esophagus, would you do the Heimlich maneuver?
I don't think that's the best way to get steak out of the throat, but I get where you're coming from. Yes.
Okay, well, how about this? Would you make an attempt to save your neighbor's life?
Yes.
Great. Did your God make you do that, or did you make you do that?
That's a big question.
For me, it's very simple.
Because Robert, some people wouldn't.
And you know what? And those are the people. And funny you should say this, because I talked to my best friend earlier because I was having a dark moment. Though, if I was sitting at a table and there were 6 of us, this person was eating steak and they were choking. 4 of us are like, you know what? We're helping that person out. And this person over here is like, you know what? I've never been happier. And they're just sitting there like, oh, I hope this freaking... That person would get excommunicated from the circle. The odds are, when that person is hurting, I'm not saying no one's going to help them. They just lower their chances, right? While the rest of us are trying to save this person, be it Heimlich, reach in, pull the steak out, whatever the fuck. It doesn't matter, right? And so I guess my point is, again, I'm not trying to take anything away from you that you're not trying to give up. If your God would make you take life-saving measures, then I say great. But when you say, and this is what I've said this before, I've got too much, so other than the fact that the evidence for God does not lead to a proof, on my top 50 reasons why I'm not a Christian, I've got self-esteem.
Good.
And that's no insult. Hold on. That's no insult towards you. But when you
No.
say things like that brings God down to us, as far as I'm concerned, your God needs to step his game up to get to where we are. Because I would never, ever drown a baby. I wouldn't. But your God drowned every baby on the planet, if you believe in Genesis, when he flooded the whole world. And so when people say things like, well, that brings God's down to us. If your God is real, he needs to step his game up and get to us. And I remember...
Well, that would be the idea of Christ. That would be the exact idea of Christ coming to us.
Have you read the entire New Testament?
Yes.
Have you? Because Jesus wasn't really all that nice. He's made out to be.
But what is nice? What is nice?
You get to define that, and I get to define that. Like I said, it sounds like both of us would help the person choking on steak sitting at the same dinner table, right? And I bet you if we asked 1 million people,
but that's
99%, hold on, it is, 99% would say we would help, and we would define that as nice. Nice is not just one thing. Nice sits on a spectrum. Like if you are skilled in the Heimlich, you would do the Heimlich. If you could scoop and get the steak out, that's one thing. If you don't know how to do it and you call 911, nice sits on a spectrum. Nice is not one thing, right? So again, and there's a very famous saying on a wall in Auschwitz, and that is, if there is a God, he owes me an explanation or an apology or something like that, right? So again, when people say, it brings God down to our level, no, sir. Your God, if he's real, needs to step his fucking game up and match us, because you and I promise you, we would be infinitely more moral. Because let me tell you, go ahead.
So do you, Robert, believe that God owes you an apology?
I don't believe in a God. That's like saying, do you think Lex Luthor owes you an apology?
Well, the idea of a God needs to step up. Is that what you're saying? The idea of God needs to step up.
Yes.
Because it sounds to me like the guards in Auschwitz had a similar attitude.
Well, not just the God in Auschwitz. If your God is real and he wrote out the script for everyone because he has a plan, because that's all we hear is God's will. Yes, if your God is what you guys say he is, or what I used to believe 10 years ago, yeah. Because you don't know this about me. I teach women self-defense. I hear more stories about rape, sexual assault, and incest. I hear more about that in 1 week than what most people hear in 7 lifetimes combined. Right? Your God was so loving that he had to murder his own son, but he can't help the 17-year-old from being raped from her grandfather. Yeah. Do you think that's bad?
Being raped is bad.
Yeah, it is. Right? And your God is powerful enough to stop it. And he didn't. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, your God owes that 17-year-old a massive explanation.
There is a line of thought in theology, and I've come across it before, that is if you have an anger towards God, you have to forgive him.
I don't have anger towards God.
Now I'm curious.
But if you
why?
believe it,
Hold on. Why?
Okay, you're exactly right, Robert. You haven't got a belief in God, okay? But some people do, and some people who have got a belief in God go through tragic things.
True.
Now, they might not be able to do what you can do, Robert, and just say, I don't believe in God anymore, because perhaps maybe they have attributes of God that is still good in their life. But they have to contemplate the question as to why they were raped.
Right.
They have to do that. Now, if they were to believe that God was responsible for it or somehow didn't do anything about it, in some sense, which is, I think, what the point is you're trying to... Because it's a relationship, if they want to pursue that relationship with God and try and grow in their relationship with God, it seems to me like they have to forgive him for not coming through for them in that moment.
Why would
Okay,
they?
and if I may,
hold on.
Go
No,
ahead. Go ahead.
Why would they need to forgive him when he was the one doing it?
Exactly.
Because when you forgive God, perhaps you'll become to an answer as to why he may or may not have stopped what it is you had asked him, what you'd hoped he would stop. And I know what you're going to say, Robert, but people make this journey. People go through very, very hard things. I can't imagine what some of the hard things, and they still come out the other end and believe in God.
Ryan, hold on. I was in a relationship with a woman who was raped not only once, not twice, not 3 times, hundreds of times over the period of 20 years. So I know what that did. And if there's an entity, I'll call it an entity. If there's an entity that could have prevented that from happening, that entity didn't do it, that entity doesn't deserve forgiveness. That entity,
maybe
that entity needs to step up. But it is a difficult question to ask because both Robert and I don't believe in a God, so we don't think that there is. No, hold on.
It comes to a giant. It comes to a ginormous climax. Because if you can go through extraordinary suffering, and God can sit there and say, "Well, I'm not going to do anything about it," and then you say the statement, "Well, what kind of God is a God that sacrifices his own son?" Well, it seems to me like
a monster.
And I said right at the beginning,
I'll be honest. I
don't want a just God. I want a God that's beyond belief. Now,
but your God, hold on.
But you can make a decision.
But your God isn't just.
You can make a decision in life.
Your God isn't just. The thing you just said is the one single most unjust thing in the entire Bible. God killing his own son when he had the capability of just forgiving everyone. That wasn't enough. He had to make a statement. So he had to make someone come down to earth, first suffer a lot, and then die. But he didn't die because he was just
inconvenience for a weekend.
Inconvenience for a weekend. So,
but something has to be accounted for the suffering that goes on in the world.
No, yes, but
hold
on. Let me ask you a question. Let's say I know where you live, and I come over, and I rob you clean, everything. All your valuables are gone, right?
Yes.
And the police finds me, brings me to the station, and I'll say, okay, I'll make up for it. I'll give Robert $100,000. How just is that?
I don't know what you're trying to.
He's saying that your system lacks any accountability or responsibility.
Robert now took the forgiveness. I gave him $100,000, so Robert now says, okay, you're washed clean. You didn't commit a crime anymore. I forgave you.
No.
Where does that leave you?
Because the premise of the narrative of the scripture is that everybody has done something. Everyone has done something wrong.
And I
don't think there's anyone in the world. I don't think there's anyone in the world that would say that they're perfect.
No,
so you believe
I
you're
wouldn't
perfect,
say.
Or you believe there's perfect people.
I wouldn't say that I'm perfect. But
and would you say that anybody's perfect?
What I will say.
No one's perfect.
What I will say is that I learn from my mistakes, and every time I make a mistake, I try to do better.
Yeah, and when you make a mistake, someone gets hurt, or you get hurt.
Yes, and the only way to solve that is to make amends to the person that you hurt, not to someone else, not have someone else sacrifice anything, because if I hurt you, and Robert says, "Okay, I'm going to cut off my leg," it's not going to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is how we see the whole thing with Jesus. It didn't help.
And the,
It didn't
Is
help.
that right?
It wasn't even just.
but what do you do with it? What do you do if you do have to make amends with the people around you? That's a non-negotiable.
True.
That you have to do.
Right.
Now it seems to me like you're looking for God to make amends with the world, or the idea of a God to make some sort of amends with the world for the suffering.
No.
Right.
No,
Can,
you got
can I ask
you
you a
got
question?
you got that completely wrong. What I'm saying is, this is how it's described in the Bible. I don't think, first of all, there was no need for Jesus. God could just have forgiven everyone on the planet, and so there would have been no bloodshed.
Yes,
There would have
but how
been
does
no
then
there would have been no
but-
suffering on Jesus's part.
right?
All
But
of that was
absolute-
unnecessary because he could just say he could come down to earth
Right.
He's
and
saying
say,
no. He's
"Okay,
saying
guys,
no.
okay,
There's a
guys,
reason for it.
I made you. I obviously made a mistake in how I made you because I made you flawed. I apologize for that and I forgive you." That's it.
Okay. Now, if he did that, do you think that then is then sufficient enough for the person that you're describing earlier who was raped 20 times? That God just comes down and says,
No,
I'm sorry. No.
no.
Can I ask you a question, Ryan?
it's
No,
not enough.
because
It's not
because
enough.
it's not only
It's
saying
not enough.
No, it's not enough.
But
It's
what
not
he-
enough.
But
He
if
has to
your
identify
hold on.
with the
no,
sin.
no. If your
No, he
God
doesn't.
is all powerful, he could
Yes.
take those experiences away from her. He could make her so that she doesn't remember, doesn't suffer the things that she
But it's-
does
He
today.
could. He
today.
could.
But
He'd
it's
have to
but
take-
it's, but it's
He'd have
actually
to
more
take
than
away-
that.
He would have to
He-
take away the person who did it.
He
But here's
could
the thing,
even
though.
he could even do better, and he could put her back in time and make it not happen.
But I think
But
we're
that-
missing
but
one
now you-
big
but
thing,
now you-
though.
Now you're describing the Garden of Eden.
No, but
Before we
here's
left
and I
Garden
was
of
getting
Eden.
ready to ask you: was Eden perfect?
Eden,
Was there
the
sin?
garden.
Yeah, was there sin before the apple or whatever, pear or banana? Was there? Was
I
there?
don't
Was it?
know. Potentially.
Okay, then I'll tell you, because that's 39 years as a Christian, the answer is yes. Eden was perfect before they failed their test. Now, I got to ask you, is there sin in heaven?
Is there sin in heaven?
Yes, because I can answer that question right now, too.
I'll let you answer that one.
The answer is no. So there was no sin in Eden, and there is no sin in heaven. And apparently there's free will in Eden, and there's free will in heaven. Now, this is coming from 39 years as a Christian.
Yes.
Right? So if that's the case, perfection, apparently, according to the God model, is possible. So there is no reason for the person to be raped. There's no reason for murder, for theft, for anything. So according to the Christian doctrine, this right here is actually sitting on some bullshit.
No,
There's
it's not.
no. There's no reason, because
No.
God has presented a model of perfection here on earth
Yes.
and in heaven. No one should ever die of cancer. No one should ever die. What then? How about this? As the Christian, I don't get to say it anymore. What is the purpose of my job? My only job is to teach women how not to be raped. What's the purpose? Because apparently it doesn't have to happen. We have two models of perfection where there's
does
no
happen.
sin. No. And I know, trust me, no one knows in this conversation better than me and Peter. So I got to ask you, we have two models of perfection where free will exists in Eden, free will exists in heaven. There was no sin. I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I saw 10 people for self-defense today. If I had to take a guess, half of them came to me for a reason. Now, we've got two models of perfection. Why? This is unnecessary. If God can preserve free will and there's no sin, then this right here is a really shitty science experiment. That's something I think you should think about.
It is.
Right.
It is.
If there's no reason for sin, because we've got two big examples that free will can exist and no sin. Right now, as we're talking, someone just got shot.
But we can be free.
So when you say that, why does God? Why do we? Does God owe us an explanation?
I don't know what the alternative is.
Well, we've got two alternatives: Eden and heaven. There's no sin in either place.
But you're talking about it as a place.
You're right, because that's what Christianity does. Because I've asked Christians, where is heaven? And my answer is, don't ask stupid questions. Do you know where Pflugerville, Texas is?
No.
Can you spell Pflugerville? Yeah. You know why? Because it starts with a P. Pflugerville, Texas starts with a P. Everyone knows that. But if you ask Siri, how do I get to Pflugerville? Siri can tell you. Now, when I ask where is heaven, I get told that's a stupid question. But I told, 1, it's another dimension. 2, there's no sin. 3, there's free will.
But what is heaven for you? What would heaven look like for you?
I don't believe in a heaven. What's Krypton to you?
But you
what's Ola to you?
But you describe a better way of living.
You're right, because I'm asking a Christian.
So
right?
What would be
according to at Ola, will actually is the greatest power in the universe. Do you believe in Ola? Do you believe in the Green Lantern Corps?
Did you just say that will is the most powerful thing in the universe?
Yes. Do you know what the planet Ola is?
I don't. What do you mean by will? What do you mean by that?
It's the power of will. It's symbolized. I can go get on my Green Lantern shirt right now if you want me to. Do you know where the planet Oa is?
I don't know what you're.
Oh man, you're not a DC comic fan?
I'm vision impaired. I struggle with reading.
My man, I'm so sorry. I'm making a comic book reference. So you're asking me about you're asking me about heaven, and I'm telling you, I don't believe in it, but I'm describing it as someone who was a former Christian. And
I
so
like this idea of will. Maybe we can get something from this idea of will.
Which is fine. So according to the Green Lantern Corps, if you can focus, oh man, where's my DC comic? Damn it! This is why I need my emotional support system to help me out right now. So if you're a Green Lantern Corps member, you get a ring. Your ring is there we go. It's powered by will. If you can focus on something strong enough, it happens. So if I want to focus on a World War II Sherman tank, it will appear, right? And so again, you're asking me about the attributes of heaven. I'm telling you what I've described as a Christian. To me, that is as real as Oa. Right? So again, but you're asking about God and explanations. Again, we've got 2 examples. Again, I'm a big guy. And if a smaller person is hurting a little person, a 7-year-old kid, I look like I've got the capability to step in and help out. Now, if I just stand there with a cocktail, I'm like, knock yourself out. It's all in my plan. You and everyone else would say, you are the biggest asshole I've ever met. Why that guy who's hurting the kid, he's 5'4", he's 110 pounds. You can easily go over there and whip his ass. Why didn't you do it? I would be called a monster. Your God created an entire universe in 6 days through dictation. But apparently he can't find a way to keep me unemployed. Because every day I check into work, I have to hear stories about rape and sexual assault. Now he can create the planet Earth, but he cannot stop the crime of rape. And I have to ask, is that good enough for you? Because if it is, then okay.
Well, maybe.
Go ahead.
I don't believe I'll be able to answer the question exactly how you might.
No, I just
answer. But this is how I might answer it for myself. Is that I have
by all means.
I have 2 daughters. Okay,
Okay.
and they're 5 and they're 7. And pretty much as soon as the youngest one, was, sufficiently cognitive to language and, she could walk and run, they're at odds with each other all the time. All the time. They're arguing. And I feel like most of my parenting, as much as I love them and I play soccer with them and I engage them, so much of my parenting is just continually pushing them apart. Ultimately, I don't want that to be the outcome for them. I want them to be united and be together in unity. But they need to learn to get along.
Right.
And they can do they can hit each other. I've watched it. I've watched them hit each other and hit them hard, hit them in the face hard. Now, sometimes I can step in and sometimes I will, but, it's not, they need to learn to get on along for themselves.
Right.
And sometimes you have to take a step back.
True.
And then sometimes I'll come in and then I'll discipline them. But it's not easy, because if you're talking about the magnitude of the earth, you can't fathom how God's going to do all that when there's all different types of emotions and things going on. It's a big thing to try and tackle, but we can't even tackle it with our own children.
Right,
and you're trying to ask me a question to do that for the entire world.
Right.
And I'm not God, I can't do it.
I got one question. I got one question for you. What you just said is completely correct. Let's say you see your daughters fight.
Yes.
And let's see that you see it coming that one of your daughters is going to have severe trauma if you let happen what is about to happen. Do you step in?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
You're already better than your God, my man.
But as much as I hate to do this, we've been on for over 2 hours. When I told Ryan specifically, we need to keep it under an hour and a half. And the problem is, it's a great conversation.
This is a good one, Ryan. This has been great. It's been fantastic, man.
And I'd love, Ryan, I'd love to have you back and continue this conversation. We do have our set format that if you come back, you decide what the topic is, and you can ask us as many questions as you possibly can. And we would love to see that happen. But I also would like you to come back another time and continue this question, this conversation, because I'll say it again. I'll say it again. We don't always get people on here who are theists and who are entirely honest. I still have the idea, and Robert can correct me if I'm wrong, I still have the idea that you were 100% honest in this entire conversation. I've never seen you...
I think so. 100%.
Back off.
100%.
Even on the definition of God, I still think that you were honest and answered as good as you could.
True.
I'll never say I'm better as a religious person, and I think I did touch on it earlier, but I'll never say I'm better than anybody else.
I don't think so.
Quite well.
I can't do that.
No.
I think it's something that we can talk about more later, but it's not.
I would love to. It's in your sweat.
But thank you for having me on, and it would be great to come back and
yeah. Like I said, before we go, just real fast, just Ryan. Like I said, man, I hope you took this the right way. And I've said since my very first YouTube talk, disagreement doesn't have to mean disrespect. My man, I don't agree with you for shit. I don't. But we can sit here and have a civil conversation. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it one more time. If your version of a God makes you a better person, then I like your God. And you don't have to explain shit to me. But the reason why I pressed you is because the exact same questions that I asked you were the exact same questions I couldn't answer.
But it's good, Robert, because you have an audience. And there's a reason you have an audience. And you have to push me. And you have to push me
and
hard.
I don't have a problem doing it. I don't have a problem putting on the gas pedal.
There's only one problem with this conversation. This happened across 3 continents.
Didn't it?
So we can't just cut off the show and go grab a beer together. that's impossible.
That would be great.
That would be awesome. So
that would be phenomenal. I would buy the first 2 rounds. I absolutely would accept. You guys can have beer, and I would refill my delicious motherfucking Hendrix. But yeah, you guys, this has been great. This has been great.
I think so
Thank
too.
you very much.
So Ryan, again, I really appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being completely honest with us, even though we had some tough questions. I love the conversation, and I hope we can have you back sometime soon, because there's a lot more. But I would like, and so far it hasn't happened, I would like to have one guest come back and try and grill us on our position to see whether or not our position holds merit. Not telling you that you should pick that topic. We also have another topic that we may want to talk about. It's entirely up to you.
Do you mean like an evolutionary? Is that from that point of view?
That would be a great conversation. But for that conversation, because I'm not qualified to talk on the topic.
Me neither.
Robert is not qualified to talk on the topic. I do have the choice of 2 people who want to co-host on conversations like that. One of them is an atheist, the other one's a Christian. And this
that sounds good.
And this might be a shock for people watching. I recently talked to Cy Gart, and Cy Gart said, if you want me to co-host and talk to a Christian about evolution, I'll be more than happy to do it. So
good on him.
And that for people who have been watching for a long time, they know that something happened, because we weren't exactly friends. And this is when I get into an argument with people, and it goes badly wrong. When I get the opportunity, I will see if we can find some common ground. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. With Cy, it worked. I talked to him offline when I produced a show that he was a guest on. So, and that to me says all I need to do these shows. You can disagree. You don't have to be enemies.
Exactly.
And I wish more people would see that. But thanks a lot for coming on, Robert.
Yeah.
As always.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
a lot
you both,
for being
Of
here.
course.
And
It's been good. It was challenging.
The people in the side chat, I didn't pay as much attention to the side chat as I usually do. I kept more of an eye on whether or not the stream was running well. I think we run off without any problems. Thank you all for coming and for watching the show. Click the like button and share the show. And we see you all next time. Bye, everyone.
Peace.